Lara, this is the author, the fighter without fate. I was taught from the beginning no fate, no illusions, just survival. I was abandoned at Ipofrotofrio at the age of 5. That word, cold and technical, hides what it really was: a place for children without homes, often inside hospital, managed like holding pens. I learned quickly to rely on no one. One of my only warm memories from that time was when Leonardo, Christian, and Stefano came to visit me. They were still kids too, maybe around 13. I was 5. We were in the hospital ward when they grabbed one of those old-fashioned glass syringe, filled it with the sink water, and started shooting water at the ceiling and walls. We laughed so much. It was chaos and joy. I remember. I remember it. I remember it vividly because it was the only visit I received during that time. One sliver of light in a sea of abandonment. At 11, I started getting crippling migraines. I would be bedridden for days, sometimes weeks. But instead of concerns, I was met with accusations. I was told I was pretending to avoid chores, to be lazy. My pain wasn't believed. When my sister Serena and I once listened to the radio, our father beat us up so severely that my legs turned black and blue. They forced me to attend the congregation. I went, but I never believed a word of it. I questioned everything. Fate had never protected me, so why should I surrender to it? I was 18 when, for the first time, I saw a crack and heavy sky of my life, a slit of light. My maternal grandfather was returning to Canada. I looked at him, stripped of pretense, carrying all my despair in my eyes, and asked, "Take me with you." It wasn't rebellion, it wasn't drama, it was survival. I told him that I could manage to say without falling apart, that I couldn't breathe in that house, that I was disappearing day by day, and he understood. Maybe he already knew. Maybe words weren't necessary. He bought me a ticket, and I left Canada. A word that tasted like oxygen. For the first time, I had space to ask, who am I outside this nightmare? I searched every day for a way to stay, something legal, something permanent. But after 6 months, my uncle told me the truth. If you want to stay, you need to get married. Married? After what had seen marriage to do after the abuse, the silence, the control. No, I wasn't going to trade one prison for another. I returned to Italy, ashamed, empty, still trapped. But something in me had shifted. I had seen freedom. And once the soul has tested freedom, it doesn't forget. 2 more years passed. My nervous system was on the verge of collapse, screaming for a way out. When a job offer came from Torino, I took it. I told myself, even if it's not forever, it's a step away from home. And it was. I started working in seasonal hotels, summer in one place, winter in another. Every departure felt like a prayer. At 20, it happened. I rented my first apartment alone. My space, my silence, my rules. I'd left behind a few things, clothes, books, belongings. One day, my mother loaded them into a car and dumped them at my doorstep. No words, just action. Her message was clear. You don't belong here anymore. She was right. I never went back, not even when it hurt, not even when I was starving, not even when giving up would have been easier. That tiny apartment didn't give me roots, but it gave me legs. And with no parents, no obligations, and no more lies, I began to leave. But not without scars, deep ones. As a young woman, I wasn't interested in relationships. I was focused on building a life away from the chaos I came from. Still, the unconscious don't forget. Despite my intentions, I kept attracting broken men, unavailable, emotionally damaged, looking for healing they couldn't find in themselves. They left me emptier than before. Relationships were never a priority. They were temporary distractions. I think I always knew there was no Prince Charming coming to rescue me. I was even open. I wasn't even open to commitment. My parents' vision of marriage had taught me that love came wrapped in violence and control. After returning from Canada, Mama had a brilliant idea. She bought Serene and me a dry cleaner business. She said it was for us, but in reality, she kept full control. We were expected to work like slaves and hand over every cent because, according to her, she knew how to manage everything. It became a battleground, constant fight, tension, exhaustion. Eventually, Serena left. She packed up and walked away, leaving me alone to run the failing business. It barely earned enough to cover rent. At 29, I shut down, packed my bag, and took a job in the seasonal hotel. That same year, I left Italy for London. I arrived in the UK with nothing. Migraines were intensifying. I was broke, jobless, and in pain. My first job at McDonald's was cleaning the toilets, mopping the floor. I went to night school. I worked every single day of the week. I remember juggling, juggling shifts at Heathrow Catering by the day. And in the evening, I had two English classes, an accounting class, a Spanish class, and evening swimming class. Weekends, I worked at a pizza restaurant in Harrow on the Hill. It was a blur of work, learning, and sheer survival. After 2 years, my body collapsed. The stress had caught up. I cut back, took one job at the restaurant, and enrolled at Brunel University. I studied by day, worked by night. I graduated with honors. Then came my teaching training. I became a qualified secondary school teacher. A few years later, I returned to university for my master in education, leadership, and management. During that time, I met my soulmate. We bought a tiny flat near Heathrow Airport. We were so poor, we'd wait until after 6 p.m. to buy discounted food at Sainsbury. But my health kept deteriorating. While still completing my teaching training, my husband got a job in Saudi Arabia. I stayed behind, managing full time teaching, university coursework, and pain so severe. I had to call an ambulance to the house. They injected me with something like morphine just to so I could breathe. Eventually, I joined him in Saudi. Then came a solo contract in Kuwait for me. Then back to Saudi for another brutal year. By then, I had a name for my pain: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, but no answers, no cure, nothing ever showed up on tests. Doctors said it was psychosomatic, all in your head. But I knew this was more than physical. The migraines were attacks, violent, unbearable, as if something was stabbing my skull with a knife. The pain was monstrous. In 2020, we left Saudi Arabia and returned to Italy. We bought a house. The setup seemed perfect. But once again, everything fell apart. My body was consumed by arthritis, asthma, and non-stop migraine. The healing business I tried to launch met resistance and at every turn. It never took off. And then one day, my husband, my rock, said quietly, "Do not be too upset if I leave this realm." He meant it. We had no money left. All income was blocked. Every effort was sabotaged, as if an invisible hand was at play. In 2024, we left Italy, we came back to London, started from scratch again. We didn't lose everything, but we lost enough. And I no longer believe this was just bad luck. There were darker forces at work, and yes, I know exactly where they came from.